StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part two of, thought it would be a two-part, it's actually going to be a three-part series of the gaps that no one talks about. And I don't know why no one talks about these. Actually, I do know why people don't talk about them. I kind of don't know, but I do know why people don't talk about these gaps, but I'm going to talk about them so we don't have that problem of no one talking about them. At least it will be me. But before we get into that, let me remind everybody I send out a text every day guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point, called the Daily Motivation. Someone out every Monday as well called the Monday Motivation. It does the same thing for your week. Text me at my number 305-384-6894. If you don't get an immediate response, we're still working out some tech issues with that text number, but those will be fixed and those texts will be coming out, so you should text me. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where I do all my coaching. It's the only place you can work with me directly, only place that you get access to all the courses and trainings inside of Work on Your Game University, like Bulletproof Mindset, 30 Days of Discipline, People Skills, the Work on Your Game system, and more. And we got probably 30, 40 courses in there, a whole bunch of tactical trainings where I dive into specific areas like the value adder, about pricing, about marketing, about advertising, about selling yourself. We got a course called Sell Yourself as well. We got a course on creating content. All of that is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. The only way you get access to that stuff is as a member of the university. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You schedule a time to get on a call with us completely for free. We'll talk about where you're at, where you want to go, what you feel like might be in your way. If we feel like you're a good fit and we can help you, we'll tell you how it works and we'll show you right there on the spot. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That out the way, let's pick up where we left off at point number 4 here in our series on what are the gaps that no one talks about. Number 4 is the focus gap. I told you in episode number 1193 that focus is a force multiplier, which means the longer and stronger you can stay focused on anything, the stronger the impact and the higher the quality of your outcome. That's what focus does. The problem is most people do not focus at all on anything. And even if and when they do focus on something, they don't stay focused on it long enough for it to produce a significant result for them. In my opinion, just based on my experience, most people try to do too many things at the same time, and this breaks your focus. It dilutes your focus, and it dilutes the force of the focus. Therefore, you can't multiply your force because you're not staying on anything long enough for it to multiply. See, it's not that doing a bunch of things at once is necessarily a bad thing if you have the right mechanics. You got to do it the right way. And I just talked about this in the series on marketing, is that you can have multiple things going on marketing-wise in your business, but when you are working specifically, you need to be focused on the one thing that you're doing. You could get other plates spinning at the same time, but again, you have to do it strategically. You got to do it methodically. It must be done the right way. So it's not, again, doing a bunch of things at once, not necessarily a bad thing with the right mechanics and the proper resources. Trouble is, most people only go 1 inch deep while also trying to go a mile wide, which means you're only skimming the surface of everything that you do. Which means you cannot multiply your forces. You don't multiply your forces in anything. You never go deep enough into one thing to maximize your return on investment from that thing. You're basically a professional dabbler, is what we would call you. As I told you in the previous episode, it is not necessarily wrong to dabble in a bunch of things. Not necessarily. Because the eclectic inputs could open you to an idea that you would otherwise not have gotten had you not had that wide breadth of resources that you were taking in from, wide breadth of inputs. Let's just put it that way. However, dabbling should be something you do as a side project, not as your main thing. Your main thing should not be dabbling. Your main thing needs to be a focus area. So where are you focused? What is your main thing? So what is the one thing from which you want to squeeze all the juice as your main focus area? You should know the answer to this question, and you want to be putting most of your efforts and energy into whatever the answer to this question is. Most people don't have one, and this is where the focus gap gets created. Because the people who focus, they multiply their forces, they choose wisely what they're focusing on, and when you multiply your forces on something that is worthwhile, you get so much ROI from that compared to the person who doesn't focus on anything. Their focus is diluted and spread out amongst multiple spaces, They never get deep into any one thing, and therefore their returns are just as meager as their focus. And this is what happens with a lot of people. In my basketball days, my focus was becoming the best player that I could possibly become. And I had a certain amount of resources I would put towards that every day, specifically my time, effort, and energy. Now, being that basketball is not a full day 9 to 5 job, I was also able to do another thing, which I could do while not being on my feet because I had to get my body rest from all the workouts I was doing because I worked out 2, 3 times a day in those days. Then I got on the internet. I started building what now has become the Work on Your Game brand. But I could do the internet from sitting in a chair, sitting at a desk, or laying up in the bed. I could do all that stuff from a computer. So even though I had more than one thing I was doing, they were symbiotic. They served each other. Now, I couldn't have been trying to be a basketball player and a boxer at the same time. It wouldn't have worked. My body wouldn't have been able to recover. My muscles would have been too tired. I wouldn't have maximized on either one. So sometimes they can be symbiotic. So I had two things going on at once, but they served each other. When I was doing one, it was serving the other. The stuff I did on the basketball court, I would record it, and that served me building my brand. You see how that works? So I'm giving you an example of someone who's doing more than one thing at the same time, but the main focus was me maximizing my basketball ability, and I could do that online. I could also do it offline. I could do it on the court in the games I was playing. I could also do it online and building my brand and serving basketball players who want to learn from me at the same time. So this focus gap is an important one because you don't want to keep breaking your focus. You don't want to keep changing the thing that you're focused on because then again, you'll never squeeze all the juice out of your orange that you have, being your talent, being your potential, being your ability. So these days, main focus, many of you can probably tell, is workonyourgameuniversity.com. That is our focus, Work on Your Game University. Only place I do any coaching, only place to work with me directly, only place where you can have me as your personal coach who can work with you on your mindset, your strategies, your systems, and your accountability for your personal life and your business life. That is the focus right now. And everything that I do is serving Work on Your Game University. All right, so it's not like anything is they're fighting against each other. Factions are not battling. Everything serves the main thing, which is the university. And when the focus changes, then the way that these things work and what they're serving, that will change as well. But you need to know what the focus is. Many people don't even know. They haven't even thought about this, let alone are they doing. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, we are on part 2 of 3, the gaps that no one talks about. Number 5, the consistency gap. Oh, you didn't know there was such thing as a consistency gap. Yes, there is a consistency gap. How many people do you know who have ability, they have potential, they may even have a good amount of game, and they may actually even be good at what they do when they do it? Problem is they're not consistent in doing it. Therefore, their results suffer. This is related to the discipline gap. And again, it's simply being consistent enough that people can get to know you, get to know what you're about, come to understand what you bring to the table, and then trust you enough to take a step forward with you. And you can apply this to damn near anything. You can apply the consistency gap to dating. How many of you ever dated somebody and you were feeling them and or they were feeling you, but for whatever reason, you or the other person just wasn't consistent enough in your communication, and everything kind of, the fire went out and both of you just ended up going separate ways? It could have been something had both of you stayed consistent, but one or both of you was not consistent enough and everything kind of fell off. How many of you had that happen before? How many of you have been inconsistent with something you're trying to do in your business right now that you still want to do it, but you've just been inconsistent in getting it done? And you authors out there, you haven't been getting enough time to actually sit and write your book. So you haven't finished it and it's taking you years, and everything that you're going to put in the book is coming out of your own head. So why it's taking you years, I don't understand. It's not like you need to go research anything. You're talking about yourself, and it's still taking you long because you're not consistent at sitting down and actually doing the work. This is the consistency gap. And understand that consistency is a byproduct of focus. When you're focused on something, you'll usually be consistent at what you're doing in or with it, even if you're not that good at it. To give you an example here, I was very consistent as a 15-year-old going to the local basketball park and practicing by myself in the middle of the day in the summertime. I was consistent because I was focused on seeing if I could make myself into a useful basketball player, while at the same time, I was not very skilled. And I did not have any real outcomes or results to point to that would justify the amount of resources I was putting into practicing. But I was consistent and I was focused. I also had discipline. All right, this is one of the reasons why I ended up making it. And on top of the fact that I had the right height and the right genes and the talent. So this is where it comes down to the right vehicle. This is one of the Work on Your Game commandments. 12 Work on Your Game commandments. You got to find the right vehicle. So this consistency gap. People got to get to know you. They got to come to understand that you're there, this is what you do, and that you're going to consistently bring it. How many of you have listened to the show for weeks or months or maybe even years before you took a step to respond to any of my calls to action that I give here on the show, like ordering a book, taking a look at the university, or anything else I ever talk about? How many of you listened to the show for weeks or months before you actually maybe even registered what I was saying, let alone paid attention, let alone actually did it? A bunch of you, I would bet. Many times when we come across a new person, especially online, what do? We usually sit and just take a look at what they're doing. We just watch them for a while. Let me just get a feel for who this person is and what they're doing. We will watch them for a couple of weeks just to get a feel for them, what they do, and see if they are what we assumed them to be via our first impressions. That's what we do when we come across people online. We watch them for a while just to get a feel for who they are and what they're about, whether we're in on this person or out on this person. And again, over the long term, maybe they are the person we want, maybe they're not the person we want. We can only tell it after watching them over a consistent period of time. You got to watch somebody for a while to get a really good feel of who they are and what they're about, at least even from afar, even if you don't actually know them. Over the last 20 years, again, I've had people come into my world, be here for a while, leave, come back, and then reach out to me and tell me that's exactly what they did. People actually tell me. Like, I followed your stuff for a while, then I stopped because I was doing this and that, and now I'm back on this, so now I'm back following you. I have basketball players even say this to me. I stopped following you for a while, didn't know what you're up to, but then I saw some video, you're in a suit, you're talking about some business topic, and it got me back in because I'm in business now. So that consistency is a big deal, folks. It's a big deal. I can't tell you how many people have become customers or clients of Work on Your Game because they noticed the consistency of the front man, that'd be me, out there doing what I'm doing, whatever it happens to be. Because I've done a lot of different things, a lot of different mediums, and a lot of different spaces. But you go away and you come back, I'm still going to be here doing what I'm doing. That's the consistency. And that consistency matters to people because human beings are creatures of habit. We like to know what people are going to do. Okay, everybody follow me here. And I often hear from people who tell me they love the fact that I'm still, putting out material. I never stopped, despite the fact that they personally had gone away for 3 years or 5 years. They were doing other stuff. They came back and, here I am still. Does this gap matter? Of course it matters. Consistency matters a ton. Keep in mind, everybody, that most human beings do not like surprises. We like consistency. We like to know what's coming. We like to know how hard it's going to be that is coming, how difficult it's going to be, and we want to know that we are equipped to deal with whatever happens. That's consistency. Point number 6. Today's topic, once again, is we're on part 2 of 3, the gaps that nobody ever talks about that I'm going to talk about here in this series. Number 6 is the mental toughness gap. What is mental toughness? My definition, the Work on Your Game definition of mental toughness, is your ability to continue being consistent and disciplined despite the fact that your consistency and discipline have not yet, confident in discipline, despite the fact that your confidence and discipline have not yet produced the desired results of confidence and discipline. That's what mental toughness is. Keep going even when it's not working. Understand, everybody, life is hard. Somebody told you life is easy, life is hard. The higher your ambitions, the harder your success will be to come by. When you have big goals, you will face big challenges in order to reach them. Because any goal that's worth having, you got to go through something to get it. Many people have big dreams, and some people turn those dreams into actual goals. The challenge happens once you start working on those dreams / goals, and you realize that you will not reach those goals as easily as you thought of them when you first wrote them down. They may not be so easy to get to. Mental toughness is the asset that will help you work through the inevitable challenges that come with ambition. Mental toughness is the asset that will help you to work through the inevitable challenges that accompany ambition. Many people simply lack mental toughness. Therefore, the first challenge that they meet when going after their goals, they end up folding. Here is one of the main things that allowed me to carve out a professional athletic career. You want to know what it is? One of the main things that allowed me to carve out that career is, while I did have to have a baseline of talent, it was my willingness to keep going even when things were not working that separated me from others who had reached that same level based on talent. It's not that I was just better than all the other players. It's the same thing in business. Again, it was my willingness to keep going, even when things weren't working, to separate me from everybody else. I wish I had just been talent. If I had just been talent, I probably wouldn't have had to work so hard. But it's the same thing that happens in business. The same thing that even in something as simple as creating content. Let's just talk about that. How many content creators I got in this audience right now? Over the course of 3,000 episodes of this show, do you think there were not some days I didn't really feel like recording? Of course there are, but I still record. Why? Mental toughness. Why? Because I made a commitment. Why? Because of discipline. Why? Because the first thing I say when I open my show, the discipline of showing up every day to do the work. So how am I not going to show up every day and do the work? There are days that I don't feel like going to the gym and working out. Times that I wake up in the morning knowing that it's my wake up time and I don't feel like getting out of bed, knowing that nothing's going to happen to me if I don't get out of bed. If I get out anyway. I do the job anyway. Now, the question is, does that separate me from other people? Answer is yes. Hell yes is the answer. Those habits, those disciplines separate me from a lot of other people because a lot of other people don't have those habits. And the opportunity in life is always in the opposites. Look around at what everybody else is doing and decide that you're not going to do that. And by making that decision, you put yourself in a position of opportunity, especially if you are already successful. Look around at what nobody else is wanting to do, nobody else is going to do, nobody else is willing to do. Boom, take advantage. Let's recap today's class, which is part 2 of 3, the gaps that no one ever talks about. Gap number 4 is the focus gap. Again, I told you in episode 1193 that focus is a force multiplier. The longer and stronger you stay focused on anything, the stronger the impact and the higher the quality of outcome. The problem for many people is that they only go 1 inch deep and a mile wide, which doesn't let them get serious about anything. Number 5, the consistency gap. This is related to the discipline gap because being consistent enough that people can know you, know what you bring to the table, and come to trust you. No like trust factors come from consistency. People just want to know what you're about and get a good feel for who you are. And the more that you give them, the more consistently, the easier they can feel at ease with and around you. So you need to figure out, how can I step up my consistency game? Because that consistency can make all the difference in the long run over the course of 10 years, not you buying some watch that immediately, let me back up. Listen, let me say it in a different way. It's not like you just getting yourself some outcome that immediately just changes everything. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens in life, but oftentimes it's not. You got to build it up over time and you got to do the work. Simple as that. Number 6, the mental toughness gap. This is your willingness and ability to deal with inevitable challenges and setbacks in life and stay confident and disciplined despite the fact that those challenges are hindering you, slowing you down, getting in your way, causing annoyance, and causing disturbance. Do you have the mental toughness to show up and do the work even when you don't feel like doing the work? My book, The Third Day, which you can get at thirddaybook.com, outlines and details exactly how to do that. So with all that said, folks, make sure you text me, see in my community. My number is 305-384-6894, and workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the only place to work with me directly, the only place to have me as a direct coach. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Tomorrow, we're getting to part 3. Work on your game. Dre, all